Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to Cornerstone Church meeting online today. We're so glad that you could join us here. I want you to know, of course, as always, I want to encourage you to do more than just watch worship online. There are several things we can do to interact and to engage with one another, to be a part of worshiping together. Whenever you're watching it, whether it's on Sunday morning or whenever you happen to catch us, there's several things you can do. You can be sure to comment. Tell us that you're here, interact with us, with one another here on whether you're watching on Facebook or on our website, live.cornerstonemiami.org. You can connect with us at Cornerstone Church. We want to hear from you. We have a link that you can use to contact us, and you can just send us an email really quickly that way. You can tell us what's going on in your life, or if you need more information about something, or if you have a prayer request, you can share that with us, and we want to encourage you to do that. If you're not on our email list especially, send us a message and we'll add you so that you can stay up to date on what's happening and be sure to receive emails from us. I want to invite you to join an online community group. We meet on Wednesday evenings at 7:30 p.m. via Zoom, and so I want to invite you to be a part of that. You can contact me and express your interest, and I can get you started, give you more information about that. I'd love to help you out with that and get you started. Invite others to worship with you online. It's never been easier than right now to invite people to come to church with you, wherever they are, even if you are separated from your friends and loved ones by geography. You can invite them to join you in worship on Sunday mornings and watch together. Also, speaking of which, if you're watching on Facebook, you can do a watch party, which simply lets other people know that you're watching and it invites them to watch along with you. And so that's a good way, again, to share our worship experience with other people. And I want to invite you to do that. Thank you so much for your ongoing support of the work of Cornerstone Church, your financial support especially, your generosity, especially during a time like this, enables us to be faithful to God's calling for this church, in this community, in this time. And I really want to express my appreciation to all of you for that. I thank you for your generosity. It's so important for us to continue God's work right here in Cutler Bay and now all around the world. And a lot of people have contributed, as you might have seen, to making our online worship possible every Sunday. And I'm grateful for that as well. It's a lot of figuring it out as we go along. And I'm grateful for so many who have contributed, so many who have helped out. But I want to acknowledge especially that a big part of this is due to the behind-the-scenes effort of Bruce Ford. Week after week, he does a lot of work editing and getting things ready. I personally know that I make a lot of mistakes and as I'm figuring things out, and a lot of this is new to me. But he has a way of making things better, and I want you to know I appreciate that. And I'm so grateful for him and his work and the way that he's offered his gifts to us in so many ways. You don't see him in front of the camera, but he has been so valuable to us. So if you know Bruce, be sure to express your appreciation to him. And once again, I'm so glad that you're joining us this morning, so glad that you're here. And I want to invite you to worship God together with us. You might have joined us online a few weeks ago when I mentioned a widespread affliction known as the what-ifs. My hunch is that all of us are affected in one way or another with the what-ifs, at least to some degree. It's pretty universal. So we think in our minds, what if I get sick? What if I have to go to the hospital? What if I don't have enough money to pay all my bills? What if it's still a long time before I'm able to be around other people? And the list goes on. The what-ifs come out of a deep sense of fear, and that is understandable. So much of the future is unknown to us, uncertain. So maybe we thought we had a pretty good handle on life up until this point, but now everything is up in the air. So much of life that used to be normal for me is just not in the picture anymore. And that's disorienting for all of us. The what-ifs are essentially a symptom of the doubt that we're all trying to come to grips with. And we're all facing that together, even if it affects us in different ways. The book of Psalms in the Bible is essentially a collection of songs that the people of ancient Israel sang and shared with one another. And of course, for many centuries, people have found the Psalms helpful. One of the reasons for that is because they address the full range of human experience. That is, everything that we're going through in life. We see that the Psalms address that and they deal with that. And that's good news for all of us, even though we're talking about ancient songs and writings that are maybe 2,000 years old or more. Still, they speak to us and they address our experiences in a way that is relevant and important to us. I want to look at Psalm 118 together, part of Psalm 118, which seems intended to remind those who sing it, or read it in our case, that God is faithful forever. You will notice that the psalm repeats a common refrain so that it gives us an opportunity to really dwell on the truth of the words. What I'd like to do this morning is walk through a few verses together. I'd like to read the first 7 verses of Psalm 118 together. I want to focus, though, especially on the first few verses as we walk through these together. Let me read Psalm 118, verse 1. It starts this way. Give thanks to the Lord because he is good, because his faithful love lasts forever. Now here in this first verse, I'm going to stop for a minute and point out that verse 1 is addressed to everyone universally, to the whole world. Give thanks to God because his faithful love lasts forever. But notice in verse 2, the scope narrows just a bit to include not the whole world, but to include and to speak to just the nation of Israel. So in verse 2, let Israel say it. And the refrain is the same refrain. God's faithful love lasts forever. Let me keep going. Verse 3. Notice we narrow the scope just a little bit now, even more. Now not just the entire nation of Israel, but it says the house of Aaron. That is to say, speaking about the religious leaders and those who served in the temple and so on. Let the house of Aaron say it. God's faithful love lasts forever. And then verse 4. Let those who honor the Lord say it. God's faithful love lasts forever. This last reference to those who honor the Lord is probably a reference to non-Israelites, so people who are not Israelite by birth, but who came to faith, who came to understand the God of Israel, and came to a trusting relationship with that God, and came to faith in God. And again, the writer says, let those people also say it. God's faithful love lasts forever. As you can see then, with each verse, the focus progressively narrows down, beginning with everyone declaring God's faithful love and going smaller like concentric circles. So as those circles get smaller, the focus sharpens. And as we look at the focus sharpening and narrowing down, you have to ask the question, Who is missing from these verses? Down at the smallest, most individual level. We've started with everyone. We've gone to the nation, the religious leaders, those who've come to faith. But what about me? What about me? Am I able to say, along with everyone else, God's faithful love lasts forever? This psalm begs the question of each one of us. Am I able to say that God's faithful love lasts forever? Well, right now, I'd like to be able to say that, but I've got a bad case of the what-ifs right now. And I'm not so sure that I can declare so confidently that God's faithful love does last forever. Well, let's actually read on and see what the writer of the Psalm 118 says about that. Let me go back now to continue on to verse 5. Notice what this writer says, and you'll notice he writes it in the first person, talking about me now. In tight circumstances, I cried out to the Lord. The Lord answered me with wide open spaces. The Lord is for me. I won't be afraid. What can anyone do to me? The Lord is for me as my helper. I look in victory on those who hate me. Notice in verse 5, I love how he describes some of what we're all experiencing. I found myself in tight circumstances. I found that I was constrained, cooped up. And the writer called out to God in the midst of that situation. And God responded with freedom, with expanse, with wide spaces. In the verses 6 and 7, the writer expresses deep confidence in God. He refuses to be afraid because God is his helper. I want to go back to verse 5 actually. He says, in tight circumstances, I cried out to the Lord. The Lord answered me with wide open spaces. The writer thinks back to a time in the past when God was faithful and when God did rescue him. I want to ask you, can you think of a time, any time at all in your past, when God responded by giving you rescue, by perhaps supplying exactly what you needed in that moment, by providing, by responding, by answering prayer? As you're watching online even, I want to encourage you, again, would you care to share that with us? Share a moment with those who are worshiping with you. Perhaps a memory that you might go something like this. I was going through this, and God did this. How have you seen God work in your life in the past? How have you experienced God's faithfulness, God's love, God's deliverance in your life at some point in the past? You see, the writer of this psalm does not even tell us exactly what happened. But that experience, as unpleasant as it was, and whatever it was, has helped to shape his faith. And that is so important for us. It's key. It has built a greater level of trust in God. You see, God's faithfulness in the past helps him to approach the next crisis with less fear. Let me say that for you again. God's faithfulness in the past helps him to approach the next crisis with less fear. And you look back and you can see, I'm not the same person that I used to be. And I don't have the same level of fear that I used to have. And in fact, I have a greater level of trust in God than I had before. It's important for us, when we find ourselves in the middle of a crisis of fear, to look back on times when we have seen God work in the past. And you know what? Someday, sometime in the future, you will be facing another crisis in your life. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you that, but it's a reality. Sometime down the road, there will be another crisis. And you know what else? You will have an opportunity in that moment, whenever it may be, to look back on the current experience that you're going through right now. And you will be able to look back and see how God worked and how God responded to your prayers and how God answered faithfully in this moment. Sometimes it's difficult for us to see what's going on right now and to see our own situation as clearly as God does. Of course, it's difficult. But sometimes later in the future, we can look back and we can see how God was at work, how God was responding. My hope for all of us is that we will be able to add our voice to that chorus of all who are saying, God's faithful love lasts forever. So, what about you? Let the nation of Israel say it. Let the religious leaders say it. But my question is, what about you? Are you able to proclaim that God's faithful love lasts forever? Are you willing to entrust God with your health? Are you willing to entrust God with your financial circumstances? What about your relationships in your social life or your lack of one in this moment right now? Are you prepared to entrust God maybe with your mental stress of dealing with our present crisis? Whatever it is that you may be going through right now and your own experience of the situation that's common to all of us, are you able to say, along with the psalmist and everyone else, that God's faithful love does last forever? I want to pray for us today that our experience of coronavirus will be an opportunity for us to demonstrate a faith in God that we have never experienced before. My hope for all of us is that this will produce in us a new level of faith and a different kind of relationship with God than what we have ever had before. My hope is that every one of you who are watching right now will be able to come to the place where you are able to say, along with this psalmist, the Lord is for me. I won't be afraid.
Nothing can separate, even if I ran away. Your love never fails. I know I still make mistakes. You have new mercies for me every day. Your love never fails. Through the ages, your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. And when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know that you love me. stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. And when the oceans ring, I don't have to be free, because I know that you love me. Your love never fails. You make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. And you stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. And when the oceans ring, I don't have to be free, because I know that you love me. Your love never fails.
As we go to prayer together, I want to invite you actually to incorporate the Psalm 118 into our prayers this morning. So when I say in our prayer, let so-and-so say it, I want to invite you to respond by saying, God's faithful love lasts forever. Let's try that. So when I say, let so-and-so say it, you respond. God's faithful love lasts forever. Let me pray for us. God of all of us, so many times you tell your people not to be afraid. But we have to confess today that we are afraid. Still, we're coming to you because we believe that you can do something about that. Bring to our mind the recollection of times when we have witnessed your faithfulness in the past. We have seen you work in our lives in the past, and we want to affirm that your non-stop love for us will continue forever. So let those who fear for their own health say it. God's faithful love lasts forever. Let those who are troubled by discouraging news and political polarization say it. God's faithful love lasts forever. Let those who are sick or who have loved ones who are ill say it. God's faithful love lasts forever. Let all of us who are afflicted by 1,000 worries every day say it. God's faithful love lasts forever. Let those who are worried about financial provision say it. God's faithful love lasts forever. Let all who are isolated and alone say it. God's faithful love lasts forever. And let me, with my own unique circumstances and my own set of challenges, say it along with everyone else. God's faithful love lasts forever. Dear God, we want to express our deep faith and our trust in you, and we want to experience your faithful love that lasts forever. Amen. I'm so glad that you could join us for worship today. Be sure to invite others to join with you as we worship together online next week and every week for the foreseeable future. Reach out to others in love. Be intentional about creating Christian community with one another. Wherever you happen to be geographically, we want to invite you to connect with us here at Cornerstone Church. We want to hear from you. And of course, I would love to see you on Wednesday evenings at our online community group. Reach out to me for more details about that, and I'd love to help you. I'd love to have you be a part of that. And in the meantime, until we see each other again, have a blessed week.